All right, our next guest is somebody that we have had on the show a couple of times before. She's always fun, and that is Carole. Carole is the oldest daughter of Walter R. Carle and Lewis Carle. Carole's birthday was actually announced in the Hollywood Reporter, as her father was then a news director and television news broadcaster in that city. Her mother sang live on the radio and was also a disc jockey back in the day. In Grand Rapids, Michigan, where the family moved when she was a child, Carole began doing musical theater in high school, and community theater followed. Eventually, the family moved back to L.A., where Carole found professional work and joined the Actors Equity Association, the Stage Actors Union, and the Screen Actors Guild. Her career highlights include performing with the National Company on A Clear Day, You Can See Forever, opposite John Raitt, Howard Keel, and understudy Tammy Grimes. She starred in a film with Robert Redford as his much younger hometown girlfriend in the Paramount film Downhill Racer. Actually, that was on Movies Digital Channel just the other night. I didn't get a chance to watch it. Some of her other credits is she was on a episode of Mission Impossible across from that famous Star Trek actor Leonard Nimoy. The episode is Season 5, Episode 1, called The Killer. She does, she's into ufology. She has her own radio program. We're going to talk about UFOs and paranormal stuff and whatever, all kinds of fun stuff. Without any further delay, let's get her on. Carole, good evening. Welcome to K-Talk and the Fringe radio show, my friend.
Well, thank you, my friend, indeed. 50 years, KTKK?
Yeah, 51.
51, oh my God, that's epic.
Yeah, we're the third oldest talk radio station, not radio station now, but talk radio station in the United States. The station just has a ton of history. A ton of history, and it just goes back so many years. It used to be years ago. The first show, believe it or not, was K-Talk. Was back then. It was KSXX. And Joe Redburn did the first show on K-Talk, or KSXX at the time.
Wow.
on May 5th, 1965.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah.
That's wow. A lot of our listeners weren't born then.
No. K-Talk was the third oldest. KMOX out of St. Louis was number 2. And the first was KGO in San Francisco.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. I had the unusual experience of doing a show simply because I was the only teenager in the show, and it was called Teen Topics, with a broadcaster named Bill Balance, who was, really, really big. It was KFWB out of Los Angeles on Hollywood Boulevard. And because I was doing an equity show, Stop the World, I Want to Get Off, I was the only teenager, I got booted into this incredible show, which, I don't know, I did two episodes of it. They were maybe like 2 hours long. Whether they're in archives, I have no idea. But it gave me this unbelievable opportunity. I mean, literally, I sat next to Ray Bradbury,
Wow.
And when that show was done, I kind of somehow or another, I had seen him doing these doodles as the show went on, and I went to the wastebasket. So someplace in my possessions, I have some stuff, it's a little pen. He scrolled kind of like a flower, and he did just a bunch of doodles, and I saved them. So, it was Ray Bradbury,
Wow. Interesting,
and,
huh?
Yeah, interesting and phenomenal in terms of, how that, plus the fact that during that same production, Stop the World, at the Ivar Theater in Hollywood, the opening, the Klieg lights, the big lights, okay, and I was a kid, and I thought, oh, well, it's just going to continue to be like this. Well, little did I know. But that same show provided me with an opportunity to meet Harlan Ellison, so I hung out with him. And so we're talking about two major science fiction guys, and I just I look at that, and I look at the fact that I'm doing the UFO headline news at Inception Radio Network, and it's kind of wow, there was a lot of time in between, but it seems that, my fascination as an 11-year-old with all things Portian, et cetera, and UFOs, I was that person who at the party would say to somebody, did you ever see a UFO? And okay, there'd be eyes rolled, but sometimes there would be tails.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting when you get into these stations that have been on the air. Matter of fact, just in some of the history of K-Talk, one of the employees of the stations, this was way back in the 70s, was actually a polygamist, and him and his family, him and one of his wives actually lived in the transmitter building.
Oh, for heaven's sake!
Yeah, it was.
Oh my gosh! I'm thinking of was it HBO, the Big Love, the series? I'm thinking of Big Love with a whole new broadcasting aspect now. Oh my gosh!
Yeah. I mean, a lot of crazy things. Actually, K-Talk, the engineer, I didn't know him well, but I talked to him. Dennis Silver passed away actually last year, and he is known all over the Intermountain West. Actually, one of those engineers, one of the old-time guys, K-Talk being an older station, we actually still use, which gives our station here in Utah a very unique sound. We still use a tube transmitter.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And we use a lot of tube equipment still, and Dennis was one of those gentlemen that traveled all over the West Coast with a lot of the smaller independent stations working on stuff. Some of the new guys don't even know what to do with that old stuff. And,
really?
Yeah, and when we used to, years ago, K-Talk used to be huge. We used to be one of the big powerhouses in town. We had a big 4-bay array that was directional and stuff, and where the antenna array was, I don't know all the specifics, but we had to move out of there, and we actually share a tower with another radio station, and Dennis was instrumental in putting 2 radio stations on one huge antenna. And has done some innovative stuff, so Dennis is missed without a doubt. But, the station has just a lot of history. If I ever have some time, I'd like to write a book about this place because it's been so interesting. Speaking of history, Merrill Cook, who...
I know that name, yes.
Merrill was a politician here in Utah. He did shows here on K-Talk, and of course now we talk about ufology. Merrill's been a part of Steve Bassett's organization when he did the different things in Washington.
Really?
And, yeah.
Oh my gosh!
And
so we're taking old school into the new age.
I actually need to get Erica Lukes and Merrill on. They're good friends, and he's a big advocate of getting the word out about ufology. And anybody here in radio, been around for a long time in politics, knows all about Merrill. Very interesting gentleman. I've met him in the station a couple of times, but need to get him on the show and talk about stuff. Just so interesting.
Oh, yes, that would be great. A lot of these guys, they're kind of like, getting up to the point where we need to get their information, sad but true. Life is not, forever. And the truth that they've got, I think, is pretty much important. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's real interesting. So since you've been on
a
while ago, you're doing of course Inception Radio. I believe, I could be wrong. I'd have to look at my notes, but I think April. I think we've been on Inception. I want to say. For 4 years. I think this is our 4th year with Inception Radio.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible. And I've been listening. Well, I listened, and then I was in chat, and how I found that, of course, was pretty interesting. It was, the old baseball thing, tinkers to Evers to chance. Mm-hmm. Well, for what it's worth, I was just kind of like I was doing the last little vestiges of stuff in terms of. Research, it was more than just surfing the net. I was researching the Fox family, the Fox sisters from 1848 Hydesville, New York. Right, and their contact with Charles B. Rosner's spirit, who racked, and that was kind of the beginning. Well, it was the beginning of the what's called the modern American spiritualist movement. And that occurred about the same time as the height of the abolitionist movement and the feminist movement, so they kind of overlapped. And the overlap was cool, but then it seems as though the spiritualists kind of gave way to the feminist abolitionist movement, which, in terms of everyday what are you going to do, was more pertinent. There's that old thing, I'm going to paraphrase it badly. It's a Zen thing. It's before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. In other words, things must go on. We have to maintain some, level of day-to-day, blah, blah, food on the table, roof over the head. So it seems that spiritualism kind of gave way, and possibly for good reasons, definitely in terms of abolitionist movements, anti-slavery, and the feminist movement. It's curious, they were all sort of, overlapping and literally on the planet at the same time. But as I was doing that research, let's see, I've lost my thread here. I came across a bunch of stuff that had to do with UFOs, and I would sort of like bookmark it because it was a fascination, but I'd sort of like, well, not now, it's off topic, so you'd sort of go forward. And during that time, it was kind of like early-ish for the Internet, and I kept stumbling on stuff. And one day, some of what I stumbled on was Jim Mars on something called, I believe, Texas MUFON Radio. So I clicked it, and I got redirected to Inception Radio Network, and the rest is history. After being in chat a bunch of times and contributing and loving it. Oh, my gosh, the people in chat at Inception Radio Network would knock your socks off. If you could see me now, I am literally without socks. So we can bear that out. But the situation is that after I did your show, then Heidi Hollis, the namer of the Hat Man and the Shadow people, asked me to do her show, Heidi Hollis, the Outlander. And somehow in the transfer of information, Joe Champion said, hey, how would you like to be part of the IRN, the Inception Radio Network UFO news, headline news? And I said, oh, boy. And here I am. So I do that fresh daily, up early in the morning, which is cool. My body has gotten used to that. But it enables me to check out what has happened that very day and then put it on the air. So it's new every day, fresh. It's 3 times a day run, but it is fresh news every day, which I love.
Go ahead.
It just seems to kind of fit right in with, it's sort of the coalescence of like all of my interests and, kind of part of my skill set. So,
if you have a passion for what you do it, and of course you do, and it takes time. I've said this a couple times. I love doing this program. I feel that it's. I'll be honest with you. There are some weekends I am more excited to do it than others. I'm not going to lie about it.
Sure. Well, that's life. Yeah.
It's booking guests and scheduling guests and putting everything together, and especially when you have guests that at the last second, call and go, oh wow, I forgot about that dinner date. I can't make it.
Right.
And I'm not a good rambler by any means. I mean, there are some talk shows that I listen to, and there's some people that can go for a few hours with no callers, no guests, no nobody. I'm not that good. But just a minute there. But I would take issue with that, Pat. In fact, I just absolutely will come clean and say that my skills are, thank you very much, listening to you and Carole, and it's kind of like it gave me a focus. It gave me like this, again, the word coalescence. It coalesced. Your skill, you just make it seem so easy. Listeners, it's hard, okay? It's hard. That's great. Okay. Well, you're too kind. But we make a lot of mistakes, but we learn from it. And I enjoy it. And you have to have a passion for it. And a couple of times I've thought about, maybe just do something, in my office with a headset and stuff. But I do enjoy trouncing down to the radio station and being part of it. And again, being a part of United Broadcasting and the history of it. And it is a lot of fun, without a doubt. Now, you also I know you do the news, the UFO news and stuff like that. Do you also, and then you also host a show, correct? Is that
well? I am one of the rotating hosts for EPIC, which is the Extraordinary Investigations Phenomena guys. Wait a minute, Council. That's it. Hello, I am it, but I can't say it. It's EPIC. It's the Extraordinary Phenomenon Investigation Council, and that's headed by Ken Cherry, who has an incredibly illustrious background. He was, let's see, Ken was part of MUFON at some point, as a lot of people were part of MUFON, and then they move on. They move on. Oh, my gosh, and I'm looking at chat, and thank you, Pat. Pat has just, for those listeners, it's me in a very short skirt. Oh, that's ridiculous, with very big hair, but I'm standing beside wonderful Leonard Nimoy. Oh, my gosh, and his ears are normal round ears, folks, in case you did. And he's holding a manila envelope that I had just handed him. Yeah, that's my old Mission Impossible TV show, my one stint. It was incredible. I remember something about Leonard, and at the time I thought, what? And then I went, well, of course, he wanted an eye light, okay? That's, Analog Hole put this photo up. Thank you so much, Analog Hole. Thank you, I think. Well, anyway, the past is past. Hey, anyway, the thing about Nimoy, two things. He wanted an eye light, and I didn't know what that was. Okay, a kid and newbie that I was. An eye light, well, that's kind of like this sort of a filter thing that they put on the big light so the actor doesn't squint.
Okay.
Okay, so it's like I don't know, it's like a filter or something so that it's a little easier on their eyes. Okay, that was great, and I understand that. At the time I thought, well, that's a little diva-like, but come on, it was Leonard Nimoy.
So you had to do
it. What are you going to do? But he was a real, absolute, real good guy. And the other thing, there was a shot that's kind of in the tail end of that scene where you see a black, I can't remember whether it's a limousine or just a fancy black Cadillac of some sort, but in the back seat, every time that was in the shot, and of course, nothing is ever really done in one take, it's many. And so in the shot, every time this take, okay, in the back seat, lying on the seat was Nimoy's son, which was so cool, to think of. He wasn't in the shot, of course, but he was there. So, yeah, that was, pretty amazing experience. And then, of course, at the time, it's so funny. It's kind of like when you're in that mode, it's kind of like, well, this is going to continue. This is going to be, and blah, blah, blah. Well, it's a rough gig. I just want to tell you, Hollywood is a rough gig.
Well, it is, and being in the spotlight is tough because there's so many people that are willing to judge so fast.
Oh yeah, and the competition. See, I had the incredible luck of not having that. The competition part was not first and foremost to me. In fact, it would have been so daunting. But okay, so we moved from Grand Rapids, Michigan, back out to Los Angeles, California. Ended up in North Hollywood, where I did the usual stuff, and ended up being a member of Actors Equity. But it was kind of it was a slog in terms of suddenly you're going from Michigan lead roles to, oh gosh, cast me in the chorus, please, right? And that's just the way it is. And then what falls to one in the musical theater area of Los Angeles, you're on stage and you're in the ensemble because you don't have, you're not a draw, you can't pull the audience, and people doing the second and the first leads, oh, well, they've got TV and film credits, but they're not from the stage, and it's kind of a scratchy situation because sometimes they're not comfortable. So, the ensemble people are just kind of like, well, we're sort of wallpaper. How about that? We're sort of like a vocal wallpaper. And it got to be a little bit of a rough slog, as I said. So, we find other things. So I started writing alternative wave music.
Right.
Yeah,
and you've put a lot of stuff out on SoundCloud in that.
I have a SoundCloud, yes, indeed, and it's and that's interesting how that came about. Yeah, and so I have a SoundCloud. My husband Ted has a SoundCloud, and it's sort of SoundCloud's fantastic. I'm not in any way demeaning it, but interestingly enough, after maybe being like a year on SoundCloud, suddenly these emails come through, which if listeners have SoundCloud sites they're familiar with, the response, well, there's some real response, and that's great because that's like feedback, and everybody needs that. But some of the other response from SoundCloud is commercial enterprises have now found SoundCloud. So I get these emails saying, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. We want to play your music, or can you be at our club, or blah blah blah. And who knows whether this is legitimate or blah blah. But yeah, it's just one of these things that is a product of the internet age, good, bad, or indifferent.
It's there. It's there.
Yeah, it is there.
Yeah,
it's definitely there.
Now, can we talk about a little bit? It's interesting. You did a film with Robert Redford called
I did.
Downhill Racer.
Yep.
I actually. In town here, of course, we've got, it's interesting. There is more and more over-the-air television stuff being offered, and we have a thing called Movies. It's called Movies and Popcorn or Movies, the digital channel. I think it's a byproduct of WGN America.
Okay. They're out of Chicago, I think.
Right. And this is, of course, on a local station. It's on one of the 30.4 or whatever. But it's interesting. They play a lot of good movies, and they've actually, now they're playing all the Star Trek movies. More and more stuff is there. But I saw just the other day, Downhill Racer was going to be on at like 9 o'clock at night. I've never seen the movie.
Oh, that's wild.
But I thought about you, and I didn't realize that you had Robert Redford. I didn't realize that Gene Hackman was in this movie, and Dabney Coleman. A lot of people, a lot of big time stars, just getting their start back then.
There were, and it was really strange. I was one of 3 females in the film. Camilla Sparv is the putative European girlfriend of Robert Redford in that. And strangely enough, as things go weird, this character's name, Camilla Sparv, played a character named Carole with an E.
I saw that.
Oh, wow. Is that wild? So, and my character's name was Lena. But the other woman was Kathleen Crowley, the other female actress in the film, who played a journalist there to interview the ski team. And she's got, a wacky couple of scenes. But she didn't get to kiss Robert Redford. Oh, God, was that uncomfortable? Ask me how uncomfortable that was.
How uncomfortable was that?
It was so well, first of all, you had Michael Ritchie, the wonderful director, in the front seat of the car, the 57 Chevy, and the other person in the front seat of the car was Gene Polito, who was the cinematographer, and Redford and I were in the back seat. Oh gosh! Now, when I read that script, when I auditioned for that film at Paramount, the script it was the love scene was set in a bed of autumn leaves on the ground. Okay, well that's really good, and just safe to say, this musical theater person who was kind of like, I was working toward being the new Julie Andrews. Hello, so the idea of a love scene was a stopper. Number one, the bed of autumn leaves. Well, that made it a little bit more acceptable. But then, of course, Denver, outside of Denver, the area of Idaho Springs and Morrison, specifically Morrison, where we filmed this shot. It was on the back quarters of the acreage belonging to a couple named Jim and Maggie Granzella, and they had lived on that property. Oh, it was his great-grandfather's property, so like long time ago. And so we shot this. The 57 Chevy was moved to this area. Well, Denver, it snowed, so the idea of doing this shot on the ground in the autumn leaves, well, no go. So the initial scene in the shot, in the little bit of like 7 minutes that I do with Redford, it starts on the main street, the main drag in Idaho Springs, in front of a tea shop. Mm-hmm. And in that tea shop, because we had to stop because of the establishing shots and the light, blah, 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 the establishing exterior shots, we had to stop for a while. Oh, drag me into this. Oh, can you believe this, Pat? I actually had to sit for at least an hour opposite Robert Redford and talk.
Wow.
Oh, drag me into it. Oh, what can I say? But it was fascinating because he was just so cool and so incredibly accessible. And so my concern was, because we hadn't shot this love scene yet, I was kind of concerned because it wasn't tallying with the script, and the last thing this kid was going to do was anything involving any kind of nakedness.
Right.
So I kind of was vetting it, that because we were not going to be in the autumn leaves, how this was going to go. And he was so, oh my gosh, it was like big brother Robert Redford. He was like, and Michael Ritchie happened to be walking through the tea shop at that point, and so he gestured to him. So suddenly I'm sitting opposite both Michael Ritchie and Robert Redford, and not starstruck, I can't say it, but I wasn't at that moment. It was working mode, okay? And they said that what they wanted in this scene was absolutely the opposite of anything erotic. So I was on board.
Yeah,
Everything
you're like, okay,
good.
I'll do it.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I'd signed a contract. Okay, so I'm thinking, okay, Screen Actors Guild, they're going to back me up here, blah, blah, blah. But, it wasn't even necessary, because that was not at all. I am talking about the most incredibly concerned human guys, they were. And they were interesting. They were, interestingly enough, wanting to really placate me that it wasn't going to go down like that. So, yeah. And so it was all cool. It was funny, every time the windows, between shots, the car windows, which were rolled up for the shot, were rolled down again so that we could communicate, with what was going on outside, even though the main guys were in the front seat of the car. And every time Redford would roll down that window, it would disturb the look of the water on the car, so they'd have to spray it down again. It was hilarious.
Interesting. How was it working with Gene Hackman? He's one of my favorite actors.
Well, doggone it, I can't address that because he wasn't in any of the stuff I did. And so I didn't even get to meet him.
Wow. I absolutely. Yeah. I know he's gone into retirement. I think he's doing painting or books or something. And I just a great actor. Enjoy everything that he's done.
Oh my God! And my favorite ever Hackman role is in Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah, a good one.
Oh, my God, opposite Estelle Parsons. And it's just, I can't, I saw it once, I saw it twice. I would love to see it again just to study it, but it is so evocative, I can't get through it. It's just, I don't know what they did, but I have never seen anything like that on the screen before. It was amazing.
One film that I've enjoyed, and I've watched several times, is, of course, he plays Popeye Doyle in The French Connection.
Yes.
And it's such an interesting film. The second one, not so good, but the first one, a lot of documentaries about it. The intensity of that film, of filming that film, and of course the famous car chase scene. That was put together with the city of New York not even being involved. I mean, they just shot that thing.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Interesting. Matter of fact, I'm trying to get one of the people on the set on the show. All right, everybody, welcome back to Fringe Radio. Carle is our guest for the second half. Again, Carole, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us tonight.
Oh, hey, Pat, I'm loving it. Always at your disposal.
Well, thank you. As I was mentioning before we went into the commercial break, again, a big fan of Gene Hackman, but I'm actually in the process of trying to bring some people on the program, although The French Connection was made actually filmed in the late 60s. But I really am, the film has got, some of these older movies have so much history, and little nuances to them. In The French Connection, anybody that's seen it has, of course, it's known for the story of Popeye Doyle. The actual real Popeye Doyle, or the person that's portrayed, is actually in the film. He is the police chief.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
That's who the character's really based on.
Wow.
He's got the heavy kind of Bostonian accent more than a New York accent.
Okay.
But when they did the famous car chase scene, which today still goes down in the annals of history in filmmaking, That was all shot without the permission of New York City because they knew
right.
back.
That's what you were saying. I can't believe that.
Yeah, there was no way to get permits at that time to be able to close streets and stuff down, and they went through with it. Used as many cars as they could to block different streets. But
wow.
Quite a bit of that film, quite a bit of that scene was just filmed on the real streets, and they just kind of took a chance and winged it.
Oh, my gosh. Well, the first thing that occurs to me is insurance. Hello.
Right. Exactly.
Ah.
And back then, they big budget films without a doubt, but not the kind of money that we have today where the film company comes in and literally takes over half the city to make it. It was it was an art back then.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
No CGI, no green screens.
No, exactly. And I'm thinking, what an exercise for actors that hasn't really been. Well, I'm sure it's been addressed, but I can't call up any specific to it. But think about that. Instead of seeing where you really are on the set, for instance, just an example. The Mission Impossible TV thing that I did with Leonard Nimoy, that was shot actually at Paramount, and it was kind of in their little Greens Common. There was a park bench, and it was supposed to be a park, and, well, that was perfect. And it was, nobody had to pretend that there was this stretch of green grass. It was real green grass, not green screen grass. And, yeah, I just... definitely, in terms of what movie making can be, and in terms of things that are seen in the mind's eye, green screen, yes, bring it. But I'm thinking, what a chore for a lot of actors who. Some of my favorite moments, like on the stage, were handling props, as the character. I had the chance to do that wonderful Agatha Christie play. Oh, gosh, now the title totally escapes me, where everybody's in a lodge. And the deal was I was playing a character who had been, somebody had attempted to strangle her earlier in her childhood, blah, blah, blah. And there was this great scene where I got to be at this desk with literal pencils. And at one point, I thought, hey, she's under stress. Let's break this pencil live on stage. And I did. And, it was like, wow. Well, green screen, sure, that would still be a pencil, but my surroundings would be up to my imagination. And definitely it's a boost for the film watcher, but as far as the actor and having that, in the moment incredible experience, it doesn't happen so much.
Right. How was it working with Michael Ritchie?
Oh, he was incredible. The first time I met him was at his office in Paramount Studios. These scrubby offices. Paramount had been there a long time. Everything was, the carpeting wasn't plush. It was foot-worn. The furniture was old and, well, to me, the antiquity of it, it was kind of like, oh, yeah. And the vibes were totally cool. And I really felt like this was just on the heels of the On a Clear Day You Can See Forever tour. And it was kind of like, boom, agent, boom, I'm in this office, boom, here's Michael Ritchie. Well, it was his first film, so he wanted to be absolutely certain of everybody he cast, understandably. Mm-hmm. And because I didn't have any film reel at all, nothing to show anybody, he took a whole bunch of still shots. He was just sort of like walking around me, sitting in this chair as I'm holding the script, and he's taking shots from all these angles. And I'm thinking, okay, cool, yeah, cool. And I read the script, and I think that, well, obviously I made a good impression. I'm not sure. At some point, somebody flew the number 500 in front of me as like there were 500 candidates for that role. Well, that's not likely, but at any rate, it was pretty amazing to. And then, of course, because nothing is overnight in Hollywood, right. Even back then, it wasn't. It was kind of like my agent, this darling woman from Liverpool, Nora Sanders, and she was saying, well, Carole, you have it. It's all but signed, And it was kind of like, yeah, okay, I'll kind of, even at that point, it was, I'll believe it when I sign it, yeah. And the day before my birthday, I signed that contract. I had Actors Equity, the stage union, as my parent union, it's called. So it was just a question of, since I had this gig, It was quick, go down to, this place and that place, Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood Boulevard, sign this, sign that, give them some money, and yeah. So I was in, and the next thing I knew, I was being picked up in North Hollywood by this great shuttle and taken to the airport, and there I was, in Denver.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was quite unreal. Yeah, totally unreal.
Well, and people, a lot of these, like Michael Ritchie, he made so many. He made a lot of big films. The Bad News Bears. I mean,
exactly.
That launched Jodie Foster's career.
And another film that is really overlooked called Smile, which is this incredible. It's almost a mockumentary. It's to do with beauty pageants in the U.S. of A., and it is just hilarious. It's sort of, it's just a real good inside satirical look at that. And he did that. Yeah, he did a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Fletch.
And then he did. Oh, last but not least, he was the director of the musical-to-screen version of The Fantastics, which played, in fact, it may still be playing. In fact, The Mousetrap, that was the Agatha Christie play. But Fantastics has kind of like always had a show playing in some countries since it was on the boards, and I think that goes back to the early 60s, mid-60s. It's an amazing show, and put to film by Michael Ritchie. It was fantastic. Joe O'Grady, and I can't really, unfortunately, recite the cast list, but it's something to watch. Teller. Is it Penn or is it Teller? One of those guys. Who's the smaller one? Somebody in chat will know. But Penn and Teller, one of those guys, either Penn or Teller, was in The Fantastics, playing the Mute. There's a character called the Mute and a character called the Old Actor. And so the film, it's an exercise to put a maybe like 6-person character musical theater show to film, but he did it, and he did it beautifully. So, yeah, I recommend if anybody, if anybody listening cares at all about the show The Fantastics, see the film version. It's as close to seeing it on stage, as you can imagine.
No, it's
got a lot in it.
Without a doubt, interesting stuff. Yeah, he did a lot of famous films. It's interesting again how we look at there's so much thrown at us from Hollywood now.
Yeah,
and there's so many, especially the young people. They need to go back and take a look at some of these older films. Yeah, maybe they're a little hokey and they're not as. I don't know. They're a little fakey, but the acting is just so much better. They don't have to rely on just millions and millions of dollars of CGI graphics. That's the thing. It's these actors of today, while some are good, and there's a lot of upcoming ones and a lot of interesting ones, the films of yesteryear are just so amazing.
They are, and evocative, and Analog Hole from chat tells me it was Teller in the movie in The Fantastics. It was Teller. Okay, we've cleared that up. Thank you, AH. Exactly, and Turner Classic Movies provides an incredible template for people who are interested in young people who are interested in looking back. In terms of like how did we get here, cinematography wise, the whole film thing. While indeed I can fault Hollywood a lot in terms of stereotypes and in terms of a lot of unfairness, and in terms of growing up, I can fault Hollywood. But at the same time, if you want, it's kind of like, I'm just thinking Hollywood's kind of like Wikipedia. It'll give you kind of, if you want to do the research, it'll give you a baseline. I use Wiki sometimes for like, okay, what's the popular read on this? What are the folks hearing? Like, or as it occurs to me, like, who are you believing tonight? Like that old meme of in a bar, like, okay, what are we drinking tonight? Well, for me, it's sort of like, who are we believing tonight in terms of all of this stuff? And this is a good segue to who are we believing regarding Hillary Clinton and UFOs.
Exactly.
How's that?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I don't know. What's your thought
on Hillary?
Yeah, and her putative disclosure stance.
Well, I think she's trying to. I think that she's trying to reach out to another group. Again, the whole, as I've said it so many times, the whole study of ufology and all these fringy things as society, I think, views, is about open-mindedness, and now she's kind of moving to another group, another direction. Good, bad, I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, good, bad, indifferent. And, of course, the fact that Podesta put himself, in a sense, out there by saying, before Podesta, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners are totally hip to what I'm about to say, but the thing of Podesta, before that, it's along the lines of, what's the agenda? What's in it for Podesta to come forth in, when was it, about a year ago, and he said his biggest disappointment upon not being, egads, I'm failing here regarding his actual title and position, but he said in a tweet that his biggest regret, I'm paraphrasing, that was that he had not been able to bring about, quote, disclosure, end quotes. And that made the rounds. And, then I'm just going to kind of veer off slightly, the queen of the tangents here, but I'm going to veer into this thing that really is a pet peeve of mine, the statement that Ronald Reagan made at some point saying, imagine, again, paraphrasing, imagine what would happen on the world if we all came together against a common enemy, aliens, blah, blah, blah. That's been used like so futilely, as I see it, and so lamely, as being the fact that Ronald was really trying to tell us, hey, there's aliens and there's all this stuff. And I just see it as he was using a great big metaphor. And so anyway, but that's my pet peeve. But regarding Podesta, I'm wondering, he meant it literally. I'm pretty sure he meant that literally. So, but on the heels of that, what does that mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, are they going to reach for something, or are we going to see something, real, or something of some substance? I don't know. That'll be interesting.
Exactly, and define real.
Right.
There's this thing. I don't know. I'm not going toward the incredible. I'm just looking at a graphic that you put up in chat. It's hilarious. That's Podesta. Okay, it's amazing, folks. If you can go to IRN chat, it's real easy. Inception Radio Network chat. You will see this, and you'll also see some of these incredible individuals in chat who are posting. That's just a little plug there. But it's. I kind of think that there's this phrase, there's a concept of the false flag. And does that mean what, to you, Pat, what it means?
Well, as far...
As in terms of it is possible, within the conspiracy community, there is a possibility that some government or governments somewhere will... fly, if you will, something like mothership seen hovering over White House or blah blah,
right.
And actually perhaps I'm totally winging it, a holograph of a mothership over the White House, blah blah blah, to generate what? I don't really, I don't know how that's supposed to then play out at that point. But the false flag, in other words, get all of our knickers in a twist, if you will, toward what, and then what happens? I don't know, but that's kind of like a lot of things when groups when mass UFO sightings occur, when mass witness sightings occur. That's one of the things that comes up is what are we looking at here?
Right. Yeah. So where they're saying it's a hologram instead of the real thing.
Right, that possibility that at some point, for whatever manipulation, and I can't exactly, I can certainly follow when one lives in a country where suddenly one is hit with a lot of stuff that's not from the history books, but actually occurred. The Tuskegee experiments, the interment of all the Japanese, internment of the Japanese during the Second World War. And when, I bumped into that long after I'd had any kind of, textbook application which should have told me that. And it was like, whoa, what's this? And I understand it kind of, but it didn't seem right. Now, I'm waxing way off topic, but when one lives in a country and grows up patriotic, my father was born in 1898, so patriotism, big deal.
Let's get back to our current guest. Carle is with us, so kind to join us at a moment's notice, and so much fun. Carole, I hope you're having fun talking about all these things.
Hey, gosh, totally, Pat. It's like twist my arm. Ultimate ham here. It's in my DNA. When you have a grandfather who was in vaudeville, and then your parents are in radio and television. I had a very strange thing. Did you have a direction you wanted to take us, or? Well,
we were talking about we had to go. We can go any direction you want. We were talking a little bit about, though, right before the news break, about about false flags and the whole disclosure thing and its impact and its use in this campaign.
And I sort of want to, although there really isn't any punchline, there isn't any rap for this, but there is kind of like, I don't know. I think what is imperative here is that everybody kind of like get their I don't know, their awareness up, queued up. I'm certainly, I am the last person who will ever engage in any kind of thing like fear or,
right.
The Richard C. Hoagland thing, fear porn, which, oh boy, and it strikes me that's got a precept. Fear porn has if my limited education serves me, we have sex and violence located in the same part of the brain, and so just going from that POV, if that's right, I'm sure there's people who could say, oh, no, that's not it, but that being my going forward position, it strikes me that fear and violence are maybe in the same little kind of area of the brain, so hence fear porn. In other words, this constant shoving down our throat of be afraid, be very afraid of aliens, of blah, blah. And, my gut level as a somewhat, I don't want to say timid, I don't want to say frightened, but how about cautious? I kind of come to rest with the word cautious. I'm a cautious person in those terms. And I just see that nothing good can come from approaching anything with a fear deal as your template. It's not going to. It's bad forensics. It's just gonna. It totally. I used to tell my children when they were looking for something they couldn't find, and they would sort of like, "Oh, mommy, where's my?" And then mommy was trying to. But I would sort of like I fell into this. Okay, when you're looking and there's tears in your eyes, you're not going to be able to find it. So take a breath, step back, and look. Right. Well, I guess that's kind of what I tell to myself, take a breath, look back and get the tears out of your eyes, try to make this as emotion-free as possible, and look at it. I look at it with this kind of, my own personal thing is when I hear even the most flabbergasting, fantastical stuff to do with alien contact, with experiencers, I kind of go, oh, this is unsettling because I've kind of like felt this gut level, like, as Sky33 in chat would say, her inners. I've kind of felt this in my inners for as long as I can remember. So what bearing, I'm kind of thinking probably I'm not alone in that. And it's sort of like the more we find out about quantum physics, the more we find out about string theory, dimensions. Mm-hmm. Oh, and of course, last but not least, Neil deGrasse Tyson's latest that at some sort of, I don't know, some sort of a great confabulistic kind of. There was a conference. Okay, there was a conference, and among other people, there was in attendance to this conference Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's very well known, I'm sure, to a lot of listeners, and he really knows his beans. There's no question about that. I admire the guy. So when I hear that he has said it is possible that the universe is a simulation, well, pause, ... Yeah. You have to kind of take a step back and think, and it certainly means, you can't short your boss. You got to go to work. You have to do the laundry. Bills must be paid, all of that. But that's a pretty staggering thing to confront.
Yeah, pretty big statements, without a doubt.
Yeah. And so, and then to carry that forward, what would that mean? Well, once again, it's that old thing of, chop wood, carry water after enlightenment. And if part of our enlightenment is the fact that things really aren't as they've been presented to us. Oh, gosh. So I go to Eric von Daniken, and Ancient Aliens, and a whole bunch of stuff that really didn't get factored in. At least it didn't get factored in. I don't know, Pat, did you have that in your history books?
No, I did not. No, there's no. I'd never read anything about any sort of a simulated universe or anything like that. I think the only thing that made me think about some of those things was, I don't know, that opened my mind to that is, was it one of the Men in Black films where they open up the locker and there's a whole universe in there or whatever?
Right, the little tiny people in there.
Right.
Oh, my God.
Right.
I love that. And, that's, obviously, once again, we're talking fiction and we're talking Hollywood. Well, then there's that overlay that a lot of people who are much better versed than I, and they're in place and they are doing their six-figure jobs, and they are sort of in the position of putting stuff in front of us. They're putting the memes, the tropes in front of us, and they're sci-fi and they're Men in Black, and I guess there's this I don't want to call it a conspiracy theory. There is a body of folks who believe that Hollywood is not just, the advertising, marketing Hollywood, but the preparing everybody for what's coming down Hollywood, that there are certain directors who are clued in. And actually, I have some of this from a really good source that I will not name, but an absolutely recognizable big-name source who told me that, it's kind of like that in fact there are certain producers, certain directors in Hollywood. I guess we'd say Spielberg. I think that's, I'm not, this isn't tales out of school at all, but Spielberg, for instance, who are contacted by certain parties in the United States government, directors, Hollywood directors, contacted by, government dudes who say, here's the description of a spaceship we have, we saw, we have in some sort of a hangar somewhere, and it goes like this. And so these various producers have been, directors, screenwriters have been given this information on some sort of sub rosa thing that I can't even figure how this would work. Having screenwriters in my own family, I'm not really sure how this works, but I'm ready to go on board for it, that there's something afoot. You know what I'm saying, Pat?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
You want to take a call?
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
All right. Caller, good evening. You're on K-Talk.
Good evening, Pat and Carole. It's Der Hoof.
Der Hoof, how are
Well,
you?
hello.
I'm
From a
good.
secure,
How are you
undisclosed...
guys? You guys are doing a great job tonight.
Well, thank you. And I'm assuming you're calling from your secure, undisclosed location.
My secure, underground, undisclosed location on the East Coast.
Excellent. I love it. And I'm sure you have your feline friend in tow. Yes, as I have mine.
I have my feline friend who's looking for snacks, and we will give those to him later.
Exactly, as long as he doesn't meow on air. Although my snack begging friend has kind of been in residence here. He's kind of quiet tonight, but that's okay. Yeah. So what? Hello, how are you? How's your weather?
I'm good. The weather here is kind of chilly and rainy, and it is what it is. It goes from hot to cold to wet to dry, and we just kind of like fly
It's the East
through
Coast. It's the East Coast. Hey, I want to play a clip for you real quick, guys.
Oh, yeah.
This is a clip on Donald Trump avoiding the UFO question, okay? You ready?
Okay,
All right.
hang on, caller.
This is Donald Trump, January 19th.
Okay.
What are you going to do about UFO files? 22 countries have disclosed their UFO files. What are you going to do about that? Has anything crossed your desk? UFO files. UFO files. When are we going to disclose? Are we ever going to disclose? We need to know the truth. We need to know the truth. Thank you, sir. We need to know the truth. When are we going to disclose UFO files? When are we going to disclose?
Oh, wow. When are we going to disclose?
He just avoids the question.
I think he avoids most questions.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, listen, I want to tell you, it's my estimation, comb-overs take a lot of time. And, there's that other thing. It's like, okay, the sound of the, let's fly this. The sound of the hairdryer as Donald Trump is executing his blowover, his comb-over. That's got to be disturbing in his ears. Does that sort of like mute out everything that everybody's saying? There was a study a while back about hairdryers, and like there was this possible you needed to look because there was this potential for an asbestos chip in your hairdryer. Well, I don't know. Is that what happened to Donald?
I'm not sure.
That's an interesting
Hello,
question.
Drew, are you there?
Yes, that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Although I have a much more interesting question to ask the two of you.
Oh, please.
Now, you are both consummate interviewers.
Oh, well, Pat is. Okay,
I don't
go
know
ahead.
about that.
And Pat,
Go ahead.
Pat has been on the air a little bit longer than you have, Carole.
Oh, yeah.
And with the celebrating the 51st anniversary of KTKK,
right,
a lot of people out in radio land, especially in Sandy, Salt Lake City, may not realize that Pat actually did Fringe Monday through Thursday as well as the Saturday night show.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And
good point. Hello, everybody. Let's celebrate that because
after all of these years and all that time that I spent listening to him from the East Coast, I still have not regained my sleep.
I know. You see, that was for anybody listening. That was the ultimate and amazing first contacts with a lot of these people who are the absolute diehards in chat. Analog Hold or Hoof, Sonic was in there. Neutron was in there. Sky 33, American Road Warrior for sure, and Bill NY. It was just this was an amazing thing, and here's the deal. Only recently has it occurred to me how blessed I was, me on the West Coast here, with the 3-hour time delay. I was hearing all you guys like, DeHoof, oh my God, you were hanging in there till the middle of the night, and still lucid and still contributing. That was fantastic. This thing of interactive internet radio, there's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it, but what I would like to do right now is to laud Pat for all the hard work he did those years when he did Monday through Thursday nights as well as the big Saturday night show.
Oh,
and
yeah.
how you did that and went to your day job, dude, is like almost totally beyond me.
Well, I have to.
How did you do that?
I have to interject one thing. I actually did it 6 nights. I did Friday nights.
Oh my
too.
God!
You did Friday nights too.
Yeah. It was
Yes,
Monday
you did.
Monday through Friday and I don't know.
I was so brain dead by Thursday, I didn't even know you were doing Friday.
There we go. That's it. Yes. Oh my God.
Those were the
Pat,
days.
honestly.
Those were the days when I thought somebody was going to discover me, and
You'd go the George Norrie route.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I found
God,
out.
Pat, I would not like you with a mustache. I think that kind of mustache. Anyway, but anyway, yeah. Okay.
Okay,
there's a comment there, but since we are on on radio, I don't want to do that. But no,
okay, yes, fall back. Yes.
I really, it was tough, and I do applaud all the people that hung in there, and especially Bob, people like yourself on the East Coast. And I know sometimes by about 1:45, my eyes were crossed, and I thought, wow, the sun is going to be coming up over there, and those folks are still there and still participating. And thank you so much for the support and everything, and especially with my daughter and that. And it was just
Pat, that was unbelievable. That was an incredible experience.
Yeah.
I just, for listeners who aren't aware, but I just want to say, Pat, you existed, persisted, and that just goes sort of beyond. That is, talk about not a passion personally, but you had a passion for your listeners. You had a caring. You had they need to hear from me, regardless of what's going on in my life. They need to hear from me, and you were so right, and thank you.
Well,
we were your extended family.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you.
And we felt
Derhoof, yes.
And we felt the agony, and we felt the pain,
yep.
And we extended our love.
Oh, for sure.
It was a natural thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, we just
absolutely.
It was going. And while I can't go into it now, someday I will go into it. It's talk about radio. Down the road, we'll be able to go into it. But
I know. I hear you, honey. I know.
Unbelievable. Absolutely.
And you have, you just have so much love coming in your direction, and you always have had. So that's part of this. This is something that is unique and unparalleled about what radio and Internet radio and Inception Radio Network offers. Is this something I was unaware of, and oh boy, could I have utilized when I was, frankly, I was kind of isolated as a stay-at-home mom, and it was kind of tough. And had I only but had this, oh my gosh, but I do now. And so that's the point, because, operating from love, capital L, but, you can put that off as much as you want, but cradle to grave, we need love. We need this. And, as Derhoof says, we're all in this together, right?
That's right.
Well, right. And it takes and it takes a special type of listener to this is such I don't know if I want to call it complex or maybe more convoluted, but it's a subject. It's all these subjects that we cover are out of the ordinary, and the people that have interest in them and have beliefs in them, or at least want to find out if they have they're researching it or are interested. Yeah, right. you there's a lot of noise out there, and it kind of goes back, Carole, to your. With the politics and the false flags and stuff. There's so much stuff that's thrown out there, and sometimes trying to decipher reality from fiction, from stories, from what have you is it makes it difficult.
That goes to the reason why I called in.
Go ahead.
Okay.
As I was saying, you guys are show hosts and interviewers. You've interviewed a lot of people over time. I think it would be fun for the listeners to hear some of the wildest people you've interviewed, some of the things they've said over time who you've interviewed. And Pat, a cue to you is that guy that you interviewed who was the urine specialist.
Oh, the recycler.
The recycler. So if you guys could tell us a little bit about some of your... I know Carole's had a great interview with Michael Sala, and some of the things... Right,
and thank you for all... Hold on. I have to interject. Part of the greatness of that interview with Michael Sala was the questions that were provided for me through Derhoof, because, I had an overview. I had a scan of who Salas was, That's all it was, but I didn't know all the what's what. So anyway, thank you, Derhoof. Okay, but go on.
Well, you're welcome. But what I think what listeners would like to hear is,
yes,
the two of you talk a little bit about some of the people you've interviewed in the past, your best interviews, some of the things they may have said, and so on and so forth. So take it away, guys.
Wow. Well, and oh, bless your heart, and so, but that's for Pat, because my gosh,
Well, we'll let Pat go first.
Yeah.
Well, so Pat, you're in charge.
Moderate us, Derhoof. We're willing.
There's so many. That's the thing. There's just so many great guests that I've had over the years. I mean, I don't know. I some of them are. There's so many memorable different things. The end of the one person that talked about recycling urine.
Always a hot topic.
Well, I don't know if it's a hot topic, but it's interesting. It kind of went a little different than I thought it would have, but that's okay. And of course, for abductees, I've said it many times, something that was very touching. I've had many abductees on the program, but Jesse Long, hands down, unbelievable. The interview
Really?
I had with him. Oh yeah, that's it's in the archives. It's unbelievable.
How does he spell Long? Just Long?
Yeah, Jesse Long.
Okay.
Long.
And we can find that in the archives at Inception Radio Network.
I don't know if you'll find it there. You might find it there. It's on YouTube if you just search the Fringe Radio Show. It's out there.
Okay.
Quite a few of them. Again, just so many different people that have been on. The list goes on and on and on.
Well, what's your favorite interview? Is it an abductee? Is it paranormal? Bigfoot?
I don't know. I like them all.
Sci-fi movies, old sci-fi movies. I know
yeah,
you like that.
Yeah. Probably one of the people I really enjoy on the show. Is old sci-fi movies. Peter H. Brothers, of course, who is the Godzilla expert. I've had Peter on a few times. Love having him.
I remember that show.
He's great. Stephen Spignassi, an author that's written 65 plus books.
Yes.
Stephen's a college professor, so easy, to have on the program to talk about. Yeah, I mean, I like it all. A lot of different guests have been on the program. Dirk Benedict, of course, was on the show before Comic-Con, and that was a little unique. Dirk is a great guy. Met him in person, but a unique interview that went. We talked a lot more than Battlestar Galactica and the A-Team and his life story. Interesting to talk with.
I think it would make a great book.
Oh, Pat, you have to write something.
Well, yeah, I've thought about it. I've said this jokingly too. I really Andrew Norton Webber is the one that was the alchemy is urine therapy.
Right. Oh my gosh, and I'm looking at chat, and Neutron has got something. He says that it's used in the ISS for water, for drinking water. Oh my God. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it's processed on the ISS.
Yeah, processed, and I don't know. There's a lovely gin that is filtered 6 times. I don't know how many times do they process the urine. Oh, God, and then do they drink it? Oh, please. I don't know. Too much information.
Yeah, it's interesting. Matter of fact, the YouTube video was put up by Lightworkers Media.
Okay.
And it's got over 20,000 views.
Wow.
And that was back in 2013 when we did the interview.
Right.
Interesting. Interesting. And if you don't want to, go as hardcore, you can, you can go ahead and you can drink distilled water, and he talked about that. So a lot of stuff out there.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of great people. Andrew Basiago,
yes.
Basiago, interesting too.
Yes.
With the Mars jump room and that. And
Derhoof, where do you weigh in on that? Ouch.
For me, it's a little bit of an ouch.
Yeah. Okay.
On that, I'm really I'm really not there.
Yeah, I would love to be there.
Kind of a stretch.
But at the same time, and I think of, okay, Andrew Basiago. Can we segue into that, Pat?
Sure,
or
sure.
How are you doing?
Sure.
Okay. So Basiago, it's Andrew Basagio, and I believe it's pronounced Basiago. This is an individual who holds a license to practice law, apparently, in the state of Washington. So one has to vet that in from the get-go. He's also, as I kind of can put it into my lingo, he's a guy who believes that he was part of a United States government project per his father, whose title I don't remember or know. He was part of a project which involved jumping, end quotes, quote, unquote, a jump room in which Andrew Basiago, as a child, went, per his father, who was a government dude, into this place, and he was jumped through time, and he purports to have a photograph of himself as a child in greatly oversized shoes in the foreground of the photo. The photo is allegedly taken in 18, brain can't wrap around it, at the site of the Gettysburg Address. He purportedly had time jumped through this government jump room into this, location in the past where he watched Lincoln deliver the Gettysburg Address. And some kindly shop owner locally gave him a pair of shoes because he was barefoot. The shoes are outsized. Yes, there is that photo. What it is, I don't have any clue. My imagination says, well, yeah, that could be. But on the other hand, so Andrew Basiago, he's a very well-known person and has been on many, many talk shows. He was initially going to, as I recall, fly himself as a candidate for the 2016 presidential candidacy. I don't know. Anybody?
Well, he actually did. He actually did submit his bid, and I think put the paperwork in, and actually launched a website called, I think it's Andy 2016, but I don't think anything ever came of it.
Okay. Derhoof, have you anything?
I don't.
Okay. Well, on that, I didn't. I wasn't like Okay, I get it. I at this point, I just have to say this camper has no clue as to where she weighs in. It would be incredible if there was something like a time travel jump room, as per Andrew Basiago and the United States government. Good news, bad news. Are we ever, as the public, as Jane and Joe Doe, are we going to be privy to this information? Probably not. Is it happening? I don't know. I have a secure, undisclosed, wonderful stringer, if you will, who passed on to me the fact that at some point there is something that says that Andrew Basiago, who was at one point backstage at the Ford Theater, the Ford Theater, Washington, D.C., the site where, Lincoln was assassinated. There is a school of thought, as per Basiago, that this happened, and he was backstage, and he was grabbing hold of a chair in the backstage area of Ford's Theater as this assassination was in progress. He notes something that I find curious and very much able to establish. Backstage, Ford's Theater, old theater. Well, we had stage lights. They were stage lights. They were literally candles and or kerosene lanterns at the edge of the stage, between the stage and the audience. And these were hot, as in they could catch fire. So there was backstage, apparently, and if I could, seance and reach my grandfather who was in vaudeville, I could substantiate. But nonetheless, backstage, apparently there is the substantiation that there was what's called a fire brigade. In other words, there were people with buckets and water ready to go to the necessary point of the front of the stage if these stage lights caught fire, which was all too possible. We're talking about long skirts and costumes, blah, blah. So the Basiago legend, the latest part is, per my, wonderful stringer in Canada, that somehow Basiago ended up outside this stage area, which he had been flown to, if you will, per the, quote, jump room, end quotes, the United States government time travel room. And when he came back, he had grabbed a part of a chair backstage and stuck it in his pocket. Well, upon further examination, that chair part was plastic. Excuse me, we didn't have plastic when Lincoln was assassinated. So, WTF is that? So, in other words, go figure whether this is or what the mechanism is and who's driving it. But this is the legend regarding Andrew Basiago and time travel, etc. Yeah?
I think we need to take a really close look at DARPA here.
Oh, yeah.
I think, it's probably like a DARPA program.
That would make complete sense to me, because the word orchestration is what, upon hearing this for the first time, it was kind of like, oh, gosh, quotes, orchestration, end quotes. Yeah.
Creating a shared experience.
Yeah.
Creating a shared experience in time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little like that.
Interesting.
And how does that roll out? I mean, how does anybody, how do we process that?
You won't process a DARPA program for at least 20 years.
Oh. So in other words, what you're saying, Derhoof, is that what we get in the trickle down is like way after the fact.
It's way after the fact.
Mm.
I mean, if you want to read a really good book about DARPA, The Pentagon's Brain is a really good book to read on DARPA and the programs that they put together starting after World War II, when they were known as ARPA. And,
really? ARPA? Oh, my gosh. I did not know that.
Yeah, Edward Teller was involved with it. It had a lot to do with various nuclear programs and extensions of which, and that's really the genesis point of ARPA, which developed into DARPA, which is now, working on artificial intelligence programs.
Right.
And stuff. And like I said, you're not going to see any of that for 20 years.
That gives me chills, actually, to think of that. But it's
basically sentient machines, and a lot of the drone technology and this micro drone technology that is actually out and being used. You're not hearing about it, and not going to hear about it for 20 years. I mean, we didn't hear about the F-117 for 20 years.
That's true. That's true. Very true.
It's staggering, and when I think that well, where it filters down and floats and foundily it locates in a place for me that I say, this isn't right. It's not right.
Well, here's an interesting question to ask Pat.
Okay.
Now, Pat had a sighting not too long ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think anybody asked him whether he thought it was of this earth or extraterrestrial. Do you have a
Oh,
view,
gosh, Pat, take it.
You talking about my the sighting with where all the crafts kind of merged together?
That's the sighting.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. I'll use my standard my reply. If it's of this world, we've got some unbelievable technology. If it's not, it was pretty cool. I don't know. I tend to believe that it was not from here, but I don't know. I just don't.
Oh my God! But in terms of who the listeners know Pat to be, when Pat says it's not from here, well, I just think we have to really put that has to be factored in.
Well, it also has to be factored in that Pat is a pilot. And
right, exactly.
He's extremely familiar with aircraft and the Bernoulli principle and what keeps them in the air and how they maneuver through the air. And when he sees objects move in that fashion, totally against the physics of known flight characteristics, you need to ask the question.
Well, I've just never seen anything move at those rates of speed. That's the one thing that I think that we have to sometimes, when people talk about UFO sightings, what have you, and again, I'm no expert in this field by any means, but I really think that you have to take a look at sometimes we see flashing lights in the skies, and let's be honest, everybody that's listening. Let's be honest. I think for the most part, people that are interested in the subject, you want to see something. You really do. You want to believe. I want to believe. I want to see something. I really do. And the planet Venus. As I mentioned a couple times in the program, I had to get down to a client site one time I was on the road heading south out of the Salt Lake Valley at 5:30 in the morning, and here up in the southeast corner was this bright object that, if I didn't know it was Venus, I would have thought it was. It looks like an aircraft at first, and then it kind of twinkles and sparkles, and then you realize that it's Venus, and you want to believe. But I guess where I'm going to with my sighting that I saw in the fall. Is when you look at the speed in which these objects can travel and the amount of ground they cover. Here in Utah, when you look at an airplane, when the wind is coming out of the north and the planes are landing to the north, the simple principle, we land into the wind, right, or best we can. Right. We land into the wind. And in a 747, but a DC-11 or a 737 that's moving at a couple hundred knots, it takes quite a long time for that to get from the south end of the valley all the way to the airport. Yes. And when you see an object that goes from horizon to horizon in seconds, the speed is just off the charts.
It's off the charts. It's not technology as we know it.
Right.
As we know it. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So
we'll have to wait another 20 years for DARPA to, call Pat.
Oh, God, not 20 more years. Oh, say it isn't so. But,
20 more years of Fringe radio. I don't know. Sure, why not?
Oh,
You're going to
God,
have to go
Pat,
back
I love
to
it.
Monday through
Okay.
Friday, dude.
Well, I'll be talking to you. Hello, Pat.
Well-
This is Carole. Okay.
Well, I will say that I've had Erica Lukes on the show and some other people. My American Airlines thing, boy, it really went viral.
I know, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. My gosh, that was like, hello. You were like off the charts with that. So for listeners who are not clued in, it was basically that you saw something, and in the middle of the night you called Erica Lukes, who was at that point in MUFON, and I'll just let you extrapolate from there.
Well, it was not saw something, heard something.
Heard, okay.
And we can...
Right, excuse me, because this was on ham radio deal. Okay,
right.
Take it.
It was I was actually working after midnight, and it went, I was just sitting there doing my work, and I had scanner on, and we can definitely go into more detail down the road, but basically just heard this pilot talking about it just turned into one of these things that I picked up and found it interesting. And
right. So Pat, set this for us, because I've tried to think about this in terms of like if this was a film, okay, a cinematic me. Where were you when you heard this? Flesh out the setting.
Oh, I was home. I was home at night, and I was home at night.
Radio shack, Carole.
Yeah.
Thanks. They were too. Yes. Okay. Okay. So you were home.
I was home at night, and in the early hours of the morning, and I was listening to the airport frequencies on the scanner, and while I was listening to it, I heard these pilots starting to talk about seeing a bright orange light that was ahead of them and below them.
Wow.
And it was interesting, and usually what caught my attention on it is what caught my attention was pilots usually don't talk about that kind of stuff.
Oh, right, and you would totally know that.
Right, and I didn't really, I just found it interesting, and
can you tell our listeners, in terms of your pilotness, how you found that very interesting?
Oh, I found it.
You were able professionally to speak to that.
Well, I was just listening on a scanner is all I was doing.
Right. But you had the knowledge of.
Well, yeah. Usually it's something. Yeah. It's usually something that they just don't talk about.
Right.
And they don't talk about it. And
in this case, Pat, didn't it have something to do with altitude?
Well, yeah, they seem to be concerned about it. They seem to be concerned about the object. And when I talked to Erica Lukes about it, I gave it to Erica Lukes about it. Bill Puckett, of course, got involved. And Bill is of course, he's a ufologist, but he's also I believe he's a meteorologist, and I believe.
Yes, in fact, Bill was. I got to interview Bill for Epic Voyages. He was for 25 years the meteorologist for the environmental, the EPA. Yeah, he's a biggie. He knows his stuff.
Yeah, and he started digging into it. And once he started digging into it, he started getting all the radar echoes and all the other stuff. And he was able to get the FOIA recordings, which they're out there. You can actually go get the stuff. He mauled through it all, and was able to get the radar echoes and some of the other stuff, which was interesting, and put it all together and put it on his website, UFOs Northwest.
Right.
It kind of went viral. I've had there's been mixed reviews. There's been some people that have been interested. I've had a couple people say that it's a bunch of BS. And well, it's like,
oh my gosh, wait, pause here. How could anybody possibly say it was BS?
Well, I don't know.
What did they launch that on?
Don't know. I've replied to a few people and said, well, no one fabricated anything. It's like, here's the actual recordings. Take them for what they're worth. If you don't believe the recordings, or you think somebody had nothing better to do but make those up,
Right.
So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. See, I'm not sure. This is kind of like framing off the top of my head, but it seems to be that kind of goes with the terrible territory that no matter who you are or what evidence you got, it can be kind of like dismissed. Like, what's up with that?
Right.
Well, and the other thing, too, is you two, as show hosts and interviewers,
thank you, DeHoop, yes.
You guys take a lot of heat on your own for interviewing the people that you do and asking the questions that you ask. And I think a lot of times, you don't get credit for having to field that kind of negativity that you get for actually having to ask those questions as show hosts.
Yeah. Oh, good point. And this point goes to, Pat more than to moi, who is like the rotating epic ghost, Freudian slip, guest host. But yeah, Pat, does this on a regular, basis. And, kudos to you, man.
Well, here's the actual recording, if you guys want to hear it real quick.
Yeah.
So this is what was pulled together.
Oh, very cool. Okay, everybody.
American 434. American 434, go ahead. You would happen to know what this bright orange square is we're flying over, would you? No, that's a good question. I'm not sure. Is it off to your right side? It's like directly off our nose right now, like right below us. But we've been watching it for a while. It's like Tower Wood is. It's a perfect square, and it's bright orange. What town are we next to? This town right off our 2 o'clock low. American 434, that is Nephi, Utah. Nephi, okay, cool. I'll see what I can find. Thank you. You bet.
So that was the actual...
Oh, my God, a perfect orange square.
Right.
That's what I got.
Now, again, there's a lot of things that you can read into it and stuff. I did find it interesting. Like I said, I found some people that... some people thought it was I did it for some sort of publicity. And I didn't even really I didn't put any of my call sign information to it, and maybe that I should have done, but for different reasons I didn't. But anyway, it is.
Well, as I recall, you contacted Erica Lukes kind of like in the middle of the night.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
No. All I did there was I put a Facebook post up. It actually started from something. I was working late, and I knew I had a long night ahead of me. I was going to work till about 5 a.m. And no, I was not drinking outside of coffee. Right. And I heard this, and I came across it, and I just put on Fringe Radio, on the Fringe Radio website. I just put on there what I had heard. And Erica picked it up and called me the next day, and she said, well, tell me about this. And I did, and that's kind of where it came from.
Oh, yikes. And it went very wild, and it became huge. I think, do I even remember there was a mainstream media connection to this, Pat?
I don't know. It went kind of viral. It went all over the place. I mean, it went, it went, it was interesting. It was in a lot of different places. And, there was some people, of course, there's some people that like to dig into stuff, and you get some debunkers. But anyway, guys, we got to wrap it up because it's almost 10 o'clock.
Can you believe it?
2 hours went too quick. But Durhuff and Carole, I appreciate you both.
Durhuff, and thank you so much for all of your input.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Are you still
Love
there?
you.
Same here. Take care, my friend. Be safe. God bless you.
Bless you
Okay,
too.
indeed,
Good night.
and God bless to everybody from Salt Lake City to the Undisclosed Secure Foundation, blah, blah. Okay, thanks, Pat. I'll let you sign off here. Honey.
Thank you, and we'll be in touch, and if you want to put that all together and more details, I'll be glad to.
Indeed.
Okay, my friend.
Be
Have a
talking
good
to
night.
you. Thanks
All
so
right,
much.
take care. Good night. Bye-bye.
Okay, you night.